Hello and welcome to Royale Without Cheese, our bi-weekly podcast in which we discuss both the classic and the unknown of art and popular cinema from the then and now. We are your hosts, me, Tomás Ferreira, Miguel Aido,
Hey.
and Leonardo Miranda.
Hello.
Today we talk about human traffic, but before any do's, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, or simply give us a like. Human Traffic is a 1999 British coming-of-age comedy drama written and directed by Justin Kerrigan, exploring themes of coming-of-age, drugs, and nightclub culture, as well as relationships. Human Traffic follows the ups and downs, both chemical and emotional, of 5 friends whose weekends are filled with endless partying. Although received with mixed reviews at the time, Human Traffic became a cult classic of the 90s indie British movie scene and a symbol of the cool Cymru, a Welsh cultural movement in music and film. That's all well and good, but what did Royale Without Cheese think of the clubbing and pubbing shenanigans of Mr. Jip and company? Fellas, what do we say? I feel some reticence on behalf of Mike. There, you started making some expressions there.
You're always projecting onto Mike some
One second of live recording, you already noticed the micro expression.
Yes.
Which is non-existent, by the way.
I read minds. I will be a great detective in interrogation. I saw you! Tell me your secrets! Anywho. So you liked it?
Yeah, I did like it.
You're not a good...
I did like
it. I'm disturbed by your cat right now. Like, your cat in the back is... I feel like he's gonna knock off the... Maybe not.
Probably not.
I took drugs before this.
He never
as
does.
You can see. Yeah, think not. But cool, great, amazing. Like, it's an interesting film. I think I call it the sword of two hedges, so to speak. Here you go. Careful operation. Time for a breakup. Time for technicalities.
You can carry on. You can carry on.
Carry on. Okay. I'm enjoying the ass picking there. But what I'm saying is that I think it's a sword of two hedges, this film, like for me. Because I really like it. It has a time capsule of an era, the 90s kind of partying scene in Britain, specifically in Cardiff. But also in terms of style, I think you have all these affectations in the visual devices that he uses. They are very apropos to a place in time, you know, with the freeze frames, the dolly tracking movements, very reminiscent of Spike Lee, or the so-called floating dolly movements. The very corny push transitions to another shot in scene. It feels like a video clip a lot of times. This feels like it was directed by a video clip director from the 90s. And to some effect, that works very well because it is what they are trying to get at. It's very in your face, both in those types of visuals, but also in the realizing of the scenes in terms of narrative dramatic purposes. For example, the main device that is used throughout the film a lot to expose the characters' insecurities of early 20s and of teenagehood is a lot of these physicalizing or externalizing of imaginary scenes that break the fourth wall, and they speak directly to the viewer, inviting him in as if you're part of the gang, to their problems, each of them. And you have the great example of that is when Chip is working at his kind of sportswear store, and you have the girl who he had sex with, or rather didn't, and she's coming on to him, and he needs to sell, you know, that kind of the product that she gives him. And there's this whole other scene going on, which is in his head, as if it was real life, but it isn't. And they are talking out their thoughts, you know, they are speaking it out, out loud. And those affectations are nice, but sometimes throughout the film, I feel like I have mixed feelings about it. I enjoying that stuff as well as I'm thinking this is very Deadpoolish to me. You know, it's kind of, we have come around to this style of humor that sometimes is a bit, I think, outdated. I don't know.
But like this is the 90s, or the end of the 90s.
Yeah, it's true.
This is the origin.
Exactly. So at the same time, that's why I say mixed feelings. I'm enjoying it. I'm into it. I understand it. But there are times where I'm a bit like, okay. For example, there was a particular the sperm covered boss going, maybe I can, you know, whatever, have something with you, you know, like he's harassing the girl in her imagination. She's Nina, one of the girls from the gang, and their whole complaint there in that scene is that, you know, my boss harasses me at work, and he's like a covered a sperm freak, and that's like the in-your-face element sometimes is a little bit annoying because there's an overload of it, like you were on drugs with it, and it becomes 100%, and it's a mixed bag sometimes. Sometimes I'm into it, and it's very, yeah, in your face, punk rock shit, and then sometimes it's like, okay, I get it, it's like the ups and downs of a party. I associate it almost like that. Sometimes you're up in the clouds enjoying it, and it's super in your face, and fuck yeah. Like Michael Diesel, he says like I don't remember the line. He says what is it? He says, let me check again.
Kind of hard to memorize lines from this film.
It's true, but they are iconic lines. He says, "He who dares, brother, he who dares, son," and then he jumps out of the screen. And so the film is filled with this sort of hectic energy that really consumes you and empowers you, especially because you have at the driving seat this very dude energy that you can sort of relate and unrelate to. But then at some points it really sometimes becomes too much. It's you come down from the high. It's like ups and downs of a high, and you come down from the high, and it's like, okay, I get it. Can we move on from the moments that become very you are with it, you are enchanted by the whole corniness of it and the high energy of it, but sometimes you come down from that energy, and you're very aware of the teenage humor and so forth and so forth. Like with that sperm covered guy, I was a little bit out of it, in some instances, but I accepted it. It's a product of the time, and but I really enjoyed the movie. I just want to kind of clarify that it's interesting, kind of the two places where the movie sets me, internally, emotionally. Like I live in both scenarios, which is not in detriment of the film. It's just a reality. I feel both ways about it. But yeah, I like it overall for being this very slice of life movie. You're just going through the motions of the party, each of them with their little problems, working to whatever extent they can work narratively. I think sometimes they're a bit on the nose, but that's the risk this movie has. I think the mother being kind of a prostitute thing, and him getting cock blocked with this sexual experiences of the main guy, sometimes, I don't know, it's a bit, I don't know if it works sometimes for me. I just think it's kind of laughable at times. I don't know, but yeah, that's my main takeaway. I don't know, what do you thought of all that?
I really liked the film. I think it was great.
Hmm.
I didn't feel as much as you did with those annoying things, but I can see it. I thought it's just all fit with the mood and with the punkishness of the film. Just made sense. Didn't bother me. Yeah, there's a couple jokes that don't fully land, but that's normal. But yeah, and I think it has this good understanding of how to keep the narrative flowing well by giving, as you were saying, like each one a little problem, something specific that they're going through that ties the film together as it goes along. You're always, okay, that guy has like sexual paranoia. The other guy has the problem with his parents, and he has no job, and he doesn't want to get a job because all his other friends are so unhappy in their employment life, so he doesn't want to start that life. And Jip has the sexual paranoia. He also has that relationship with the other girl that immediately from the get-go you understand like there's something there, there's a chemistry there, and they're sort of not addressing it immediately. They're like, oh, we're just friends, whatever. But they're very touchy with each other, which was immediately like, whoa, like, are you guys, you're sure you're just friends? Like
Uh-huh.
she kisses him on the lips early in the
Yeah.
film. I was like, wait, wait a minute. Okay. All right, that's how you are. But yeah, I think that's interesting. And the other guy, like having his fits of paranoia with his girlfriend cheating on him. So like everyone has this thing, and it makes the film very easy to watch because each time you cut to some other character, like in some films when you do that, you're like, why are we here? Like, who are these people? But because they have such clear and like obvious problems, it's always interesting to see how each scene is addressing those problems. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think the theme of paranoia is almost like the main one because yeah, the sexual paranoia with Jip. But then as you said, the other couple, Nina, and I don't remember his name, his friend, uh, Coop, yeah, exactly. Nina and Koopa also have the relationship paranoia. I think even Lulu with the thing of then you learning that she also fancied Jip for some time. You could see a little hint of do I kiss him? Do I not kiss him? Would it be humiliating? So I think there's always that sense of it's not fully paranoia, I think, in that case, but it's always the sense of do I do this? Do I not do this? Am I overthinking things? Am I seeing things that aren't there? Um, and they kind of always, I think, intelligently related to the drugs that they take. So it's a nice analogy to this party life that they keep leading and this one weekend of of doing drugs. And I think it's really interesting because, picking up on that, I think that it definitely has sort of a party vibe. But then it addresses really interesting subjects, as we said, the paranoia and sexual impotence. But I think the film takes really interesting, um, I wouldn't say turns because we're kind of leading towards it, but it goes in interesting directions, especially with Moff at the end, the other friend, who kind of has trouble that his friends accept that he doesn't want to do drugs anymore. Right? And I think even though it's always under this veil of comedy, I think his acting is pretty good, and I think he really demonstrates the sort of I've had enough of this stage, which was interesting to see, and especially because it's at a point where the film kind of doesn't go in the sort of mold of the electronic dance music that we'd been having, and we kind of see him through a long lens, like walking. I think with a slow zoom. I don't know if you remember this scene. The camera is like really high, and and yeah, instead of that dance music, we have like classical like violins and something really heavy, which I thought was really interesting and very like a clash from what we'd seen before. So yeah, the film has the capacity to really engage you in unexpected ways, and that was what I thought was more interesting because other than the sort of casual and hedonistic vibe that the film has with the party and their friendships. I think each of them have pretty interesting problems, so to speak, and I think they're explored in a really intelligent way. I think nothing is really um, not purposeful to the story. It all connects well, and I also really enjoyed the sort of main thread of Jip and Lulu sort of finding each other, which was interesting because in a film of such sort of casualness and sort of almost non-direction with everything, it was interesting to see that thread being laid out and them becoming a relationship by the end. Um, but yeah, in terms of format, I think Tomasz, yeah, it is like sometimes very in your face, but again, I think this was like the early stages. You see a lot of what Guy Ritchie does and what Danny Boyle in Trainspotting did, and they even mentioned
I didn't
Trainspotting.
even mention the film. I mean, you cannot see this film without thinking about that film too.
Yeah, exactly. But they even use like that sort of this is what she meant device through the subtitles, like in Annie Hall,
I
at that scene at the
yeah,
dinner. So
I
it
really
feel
laughed
like
at that too. Yeah.
yeah, the film does a lot of these little things, homages, and sometimes yes, things straight out of a sort of music clip, or even that bit of the reporter sort of doing his report basically on the disco, and then at the end he starts dancing, which I thought was really funny. Um,
Mm-hmm.
where the film just kind of goes in very absurd directions, but always within that sort of comedy, British sketch comedy, low quality things that you see like in the IT crowd and stuff like that. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I enjoyed that whole mash of things of form and different things from other films as well. For me, it wasn't too much, but I can see how after seeing a lot of these films, it's kind of hard to sort of put yourself in that mindset of, oh, this is something kind of brand new. By this time, we're seeing things that are very, run of the mill already. So.
Yeah, I mean, what I mean by all this is not even that I dislike the film or it's troublesome for me to watch the film because of those reasons. What I'm recognizing is precisely what you're saying, which is it's difficult to watch these devices anew once you're so used to them because of other movies of the 90s and early 2000s that repeat them. And then I think, kind of this, I think there's something of this humor coming back today, especially with the Deadpool kind of Ryan Reynolds thing. So it becomes
Edgar Wright as well
Edgar Wright, yeah, Edgar Wright
for
as well.
some years.
So Edgar Wright, yes, Edgar Wright, that's a good pick. Yeah, it's true. He's very reminiscent. He comes from that time, with Spaced, the series he did in the 90s with Simon Pegg, then evolving into the Cornetto trilogy in the early 2000s, employs a lot of those devices. And so, precisely because of that, that's part of why perhaps my humor and brain ours is accepts this type of humor well because I do like the devices used, so I do like the film. I think it's very fun, and it brings me back to an era that is familiar to me precisely because of those movies. We grew up in the early 2000s, which is also in itself a decade influenced by the 90s. There's a lot of a crossing of the media of the 90s into the 2000s. So you almost live, by living in the early 2000s, you live a bit of what the 90s were as well. So it's all kind of connected with the VHSs and whatnot that you used to see more when you were a kid. So when I see this film, it's like really like a time capsule. Even what you watched on TV, programs on TV for children, really I think had a similar style of cutting, still a similar style of editing to this film. So when I see this, it's sort of like going to a very nostalgic, odd place that I live, but I also didn't live. So yeah, that's very rewarding to watch this film with that thing in mind. And also, I think there's a Britishness that somehow is very familiar to me. I don't know how precisely how or when, but I used to watch kind of British shows that were either dubbed for Portuguese or not dubbed at all when I was a kid. So, and even Harry Potter, being a fan of it in the early 2000s, really influences you in the way these characters speak and interact with each other and the expressions that they use. You really, I think, are very accepting and open to how they behave. And so, yeah,
Although this film does have a lot of nuance in the sort of I wouldn't say like jargon, but it's like not jargon, slang. But I
oh
mean,
yes,
in a way that it's kind of hard to see the film without subtitles because sometimes
it's
they
true.
say things, that you can see are very culturally specific, and for me, it was not that relatable language-wise because the you could tell it's from a single time and a place. Obviously, the accent and a lot of what they say is familiar, but to some extent, it's also another
Of
level
course, of course.
of Britishness.
I mean, another reason I would say you need subtitles is because, especially in the beginning, the music, like the
The
mixing is
mix,
awful.
Oh
yeah.
It's
yeah,
like
that's an
Jesus.
interesting. I was wondering if that was a choice or
I'll
not
get to
because
that.
Like
I even
I was
found that
wondering if it was like the copy
I
we
even
had
found
was
that
just
interesting
awful.
because to me, when he hit that way, I thought, oh, this is like, they are talking, but the music is so loud you can't hear. It's like we're already at the party. I thought it that way
Yeah, yeah, no,
because
I
it
can
felt
see
so
that, but it's also
intentional.
like
But it's
I want
also
to hear
bothersome
what the fuck
because I
they're
want to hear.
Yeah,
saying.
I was
yeah.
putting it louder and louder.
Yeah. And then,
So,
oh my God, then the music comes in. It's like, gee, you
exactly,
have to
exactly.
mix yourself. Like, huh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mix yourself. Yeah, yeah, it's true, it's true, it's
I
true.
do like that aspect of it potentially sort of being an analogy with the music and them not being able to listen to themselves. I think that's interesting, but again, it's so much and so often. It's basically the whole film. It's just how it's mixed. So at a certain point, you just become kind of tired of trying to listen to what they're saying, and
I think it's
I
more in the
think
beginning that I
it
have
just
those
starts that
problems, but
way.
yeah.
I think in the
For
beginning
me,
it's
it
worse
was
because
always.
like they're not even in a context of party, so it's
Yeah.
even more
So
jarring.
yeah,
It's like
perhaps
they're at
it's
their
that was that.
jobs, and so I
But to
don't
be
know.
honest, I went for the subtitles, so
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
me
no,
too. It
definitely. I
wasn't a
mean,
big deal. Yeah.
I'm not
I'd
sure
always
if
listen to
at a certain
subtitles
point,
anyway.
I wouldn't even know if at a certain point they also kept the mix going because I just started reading.
Yeah.
I think it gets better because then the like their accents and the words they were using started registering more to me. when you're just reading the subtitles, it's like sometimes there's a disconnect between your eyes reading it and what you're actually listening, because the music is so loud in the beginning of the film. But I think as the film goes along, it got better, I think, unless I just adjusted maybe. Yeah.
And definitely also the part of it wasn't just that, was just the fact that even though I was hearing, I was listening to it, I just didn't understand what they meant by the the words that they said, because yeah, again, it's coming back to it. It's just very specific things that, whether does this mean it's a good thing or a bad thing? Because sometimes expressions like, ah, that's the shit or something, and it's like, this can mean everything. So sometimes you're
I didn't
just kind of
have that
left.
problem very much, even with subtitles. Even with subtitles, you had problem understanding what they were saying,
I
or
mean,
some of the
sometimes
expressions.
I would like, this example was kind of crude, but sometimes it's very, I mean, I'm gonna try to see if I find an example, but sometimes it's very specific, like a piece of sort of segue, one of those words or expressions that you just throw, and sometimes getting the actual meaning of it, it's not super easy. So it doesn't really take away from the whole meaning of what they're saying, but sometimes you know,
And the American version was cut down because the Americans were kind of taking away all the things they didn't understand, taking away the expressions, substituting for stuff that was relatable to their own
Censorship,
culture.
but we don't understand
Yeah,
this.
and
Get
so
it.
it went from 90 minutes to 80 minutes or something. But it was like, why are you doing that? Like, just accept and like
I mean,
it's like that
that's
sketch.
outrageous, because the
Yeah,
film is
it's
what
like a
it is.
sketch that I saw from a British comedian where the whole sketch or stand up was that American sorry Americans listening to this, but the idea was it's very funny, but the whole comparison to this need of needing to censor the film because you don't understand the cultural references. We don't understand, but that's the whole point. Like, be open to it and let it come in. But the sketch was, to cut it short, Americans don't understand kind of you need simple wording for them to understand what's going on. The simplest example that was given on the stand up was the sign red and green for walking, like on the zebra crossing. Here is just the symbol. We have symbols, we have codes, like in cars. Even it was also referring to like traffic. There they have walk now, stop, like in words, words saying walk now,
It's
green,
for
stop now,
colorblind people.
red. Okay, it is. Is it?
No, no, I don't know.
All right,
No,
I'm just
might
making
be.
sure. But yeah,
Could be.
and what made the stand-up funny was that example and much more. That was just they need clear wording, word it out so to understand. So, it makes for a funny sketch. I don't know what else, but yeah, I don't understand the need to cut down a film just because you don't understand some of the
Yeah,
words.
that's stupid.
Uh,
Like that's the point of watching movies from different contexts. It's like you're experience a different type of culture, different type of language. That's stupid. I don't even know what 10 minutes did they even cut from this. The film is
there
already
was bits and
pretty
pieces.
like
The Wikipedia page
breezy.
goes more into detail, for
Yeah,
example, but
I have
yeah.
to see it.
I think also, I think it's also interesting to point out that naturally, because you have a male protagonist and who has a male friend, a lot of the problems that guides the drama, so to speak, quote unquote, of the film are to do with our main protagonist's sexual paranoia and will he perform, not perform, will he break it tonight, and etc. So there's a lot of the objectification of the other side, which is interesting, and there's a lot of relatability of what is to be kind of a man partying and looking out for like a relationship when you don't have one at the moment, etc. But you also have, nonetheless, the other side, the girlfriends in the group and how they relate to having sex on having sex, finding their way into a relationship they're having, which is the case of Nina. How do I relate to this guy who doesn't allow me to be myself? And so you have the reversal of the coin, kind of him being very possessive. She's my bud, my girl,
But
bird to the other guy. Sorry, man, are you for police or something?
bro,
Bro, it's
Giza.
interesting. That actor is English, and they were casting for Welsh actors naturally, being in Cardiff. So when he came on, and they really liked him, but because he was English, that's Danny Dyer, who is kind of a known kind
Danny
of
Dyer,
British
yeah.
actor, and he said, "I know, man, but I can do the character." Okay, so they really accepted him doing it. And for that scene where he goes, "Nice one, bruv," it's like he says, "Can I say bruv?" Because they say, I think they say bruh, I think so. They don't say the V part, but in England they say the bruv. So he advocated for that, and then it stayed in, and to accept that his character has being an outsider, not being from Cardiff. So that's a nice little detail there. But coming on into the Nina and Lulu, kind of the girls in the film, I think they really also give space to show how they're very kind of sexually active and free, and they are conquerors of their own space and not submissive at all. They all have their kind of space of dominion and independence. You see the men being like this towards them, their girlfriends in extent, being like, that's my bird and possessive. But you also see them really being punk rock in this style of the film. Like the moments where I laughed the most wasn't just with the men, it was more with the girls after Lulu has the sex with Chip, and she's
Yeah.
kind of confiding in Nina and saying everything. That's where I laughed the most, because there was so much. I was curious about how. I know how men will kind of talk about it, but I'm curious about how will girls talk about it. And that was kind of fun to watch. And then after that, the scene in which she's having this thought conversation with her grandmother. So you liked it, yes, yes. There's the subtitles beneath it saying, "I understand
There's
you,
also
darling."
the great scene,
Yeah.
like it's them two, the two girls. They're being interviewed, and they're like giving this over the top thing about heroin, and oh my god,
Oh
like
yes,
because
that's
the
good too.
interviewer is like, oh, well, what about the drugs and the ecstasy? And they're just like leaning into like the over the topness of the portrayal of drug culture, especially
Yeah.
and the film is in relation with Train Spotting, but I think this film is much more.
There's a cheekiness.
There's a
I say
cheekiness,
that
and
would
it's
be
not
the
so
word.
like it's not trying to portray like such a horrible thing. Like
Yes.
they're having fun. They're like I think they're responsible enough about what they're doing, and obviously the film also acknowledges the problems that come with doing drugs. But not everything. It's not one or the other. It's not like you immediately become like this fucking drug addicted person or something like that. I think the film does a good job of showing like they can be normal and they're also kind of crazy in this reality that they live and they have fun.
Yeah, that scene was funny because I think one of the lines that I left was like, she asked what time it is, and she's like, the reporter says like it's 1:45. Oh, it's time for our next hit or something.
Yes,
I
yes,
think
yes,
that's what
yes.
she says.
That was good. That was good. Yeah, and in the scene where the kind of Lulu is talking about the sex with Jip. It's funny when she's back and forth between. Now, how big was his dick? Like he
I'm not
starts
gonna.
singing along, and I cannot say that this big. So, and Jip just had a moment like that with his best mate, which played out in a very similar way. I cannot say that, and then he says it. So subliminally, but that's very funny. The way we behave the same in the very much the same way.
But they do have like a very interesting camaraderie, and it is interesting to see those sort of relationships being portrayed because sometimes, we don't see that. I'm talking about women, like female relationships, especially in this context of parties and the way they talk about themselves and their relationships. So I think that's all. I mean, I'm sure there are many films that address this, but personally, I haven't seen a lot, I guess, or at least it's not so present in my memory that I can say, this is something that I've seen. So yeah, I thought it was one of the more interesting parts of the film as well. Yeah, because in my mind, the male relationships are, you have a tendency to understand better or to find more familiar when you see in films. Oh yeah, I've seen this before. And with women, it's not so much.
And also it's interesting because you end up touching a matter that is to do with how outspoken are we in different social circles. With our male friends, we are one way. And then women within their groups with their female friends, they are outspoken in one way. When the two cross, they are a different way. So it's always to do with what you say in different contexts, which is interesting. You're peeking behind the curtain. You're being invited to
It's
those
all
moments and
roles,
see
I
how.
suppose, also
Yeah.
social
It's
roles.
Jung's persona, so to speak. Like in different
Yeah.
Jung. it's Jung's persona, Carl Jung's persona in different social contexts.
No, for sure, but the same way they all have with their own parents, which
Of
you
course,
see
yes,
Lulu
that's
at the
exactly it.
dinner scene and Jip with his mom, so and Moff with his parents in a
Exactly.
lot of crazy scenes as well.
It's a one.
Yeah.
Oh, that one.
Oh,
That one I
yeah,
was
that
like,
one.
no, 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 no.
And then she
Stop
laughs.
right now.
When,
Exactly.
like, is it
Yeah, they all.
unexpected? Like, a normal film, I guess, a more even typical comedy would just have her
Uh-huh.
horrified and running away. But the fact that she laughed, I think, adds to the humor of the scene.
Yeah, and somehow realistic as well, too.
Yeah.
The fact that she laughs, I think it would be natural. And this is a weird scene because it happens right after the nighttime, and it's very quick, so it's almost like out of normal chronology. You feel like, am I jumping out of time, or what is this? But it's almost like it's immediately the next day, and this is what you see. It's bizarre, which is quite interesting because it's how you get introduced to Moth coming out of his high, very coldly, very
Yeah.
quickly. It's so almost like this cold open, and it's perfect. Because it's this scare that is just jump scare that happens to him. And then it's kind of this alert that things needs to change, but it's a cycle. Nothing's gonna change. You're gonna get back to drugs, back to partying, back to these sort of weekends, normalcy of
I'm
work
not sure though.
life and going.
I think it's
Well, the
hinted that
filmmakers have said that and attested that, so which I
They
agreed
don't
by
know
the end of
it. They don't know in the film.
They don't know anything.
They only
Just
make it.
intentions.
They
Yeah,
only
so
make it.
Then it's
Once
not
it's
into the
done,
world,
it's
then we
not
make the
theirs.
rules. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think, but that makes a strong enough point to the opposite, at least in a sense
Do you
that
think they are going to change?
no, I'm not saying they all are going to change or if it's obvious that's gonna happen next week or next month, but they definitely address the fact that there's always someone or someone's in the group that's start to feel mixed feelings about this way of living, and even though we don't know if he's gonna change, if he's actually gonna do what he says he's gonna do, which is stop, it's hinted enough that it's interesting to reflect on. And I think, at least in my mind, yes, he ends up at the pub saying that he wants a drink and the vodka and whatever, but the drugs, I think it's a bit different. I mean, you might stop doing drugs but you don't stop drinking, so I think it's a mixed bag, I think. Although I personally I still enjoyed the fact that he goes through that, because that's the most important part. To see someone within this context to experience, the different things other than just pure ecstasy and pure joy.
Kind of a final thought. I think it's interesting to see a film set in Cardiff because it raises a lot of memories of the places that I've seen. Certainly I would have liked to experience. I've studied there, like I did my master's there a while ago, and I would have liked to experience much more of the pub culture. I only went once, one night out the one night out that I got drunk, and wasn't even a pub. It was more of kind of I don't even know what to call it.
You
This
only
tent.
went out once to a pub. That's very un-Welsh of you.
It was 1 year, and I was filled with projects, and it wasn't like the best. Let's say it wasn't the best social experience neither. That thing, it was very kind of distant. It was like the COVID years as well, so that didn't allow for much. It
Yeah,
was difficult, but a lot of the places that I've seen here was cool to see again. Like I've seen, like, especially towards the end, you see these aerial shots of like Bute Park and kind of Cardiff Castle, King Edward VII Street, St. Mary Street, all of that. Like it's there in the end. They are, I think, in St. Mary Street, which is one of the big avenues. So that was pretty cool. And I had moments where I was like, "Whoa, I know that place! I know that place! I've been there." Like there's one of the shots of a bridge that they're going under, and it's like a viaduct kind of thing. You go under, and I was like, I passed so much like down that bridge. It was just a bridge. It was just going there. I remember that thing, and then the Saint Mary Street. So that was cool. Like I went, certainly I went down memory lane.
It's nice when movies bring back
When movies kind of
memories.
sprout
Yeah.
that from another land, another
Yeah,
culture.
exactly.
Yes. Yeah. I think the only pub that I went to was when I was in London during the Soho London Film Festival, and that was more interesting. I did not get drunk, but I was with this American director, one of the festival founders, just talking, and that was cool more because of the aesthetic of the pub. Like the other one that I went to in Wales wasn't even a pub; it was more like a tent thing. And then this one was really proper tents. It was tents. Like we went there, and then you had tables that you sit on, and then you drink. It was more of a, I don't know, a group thing. You had a lot of people coming in. It was called something depot, depot or something. So I don't know. It was this big, large kind of party place where you went to, and you have different stands to get food,
Yeah.
almost like a fair, almost
Yeah,
like
like a fair.
so to
That's what I
speak.
was gonna say.
Yeah. So, but it didn't have like fun rides or anything. You just had like food
Yeah.
stands, and you sit on a table and you eat and you talk.
A food fair, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I ended up at night talking about the Pixies and Radiohead, like being all
Classic.
drunk and stuff. Classic. Because somebody liked it, and they went up to me, "Oh,
I
you like Radiohead?" So yes, I do. So that
A
was that.
nerd
And,
like me?
nerd. In London was cool. In London was cool because it was proper pub. You went down some winding stairs, wood stairs. It was all wooden kind of furniture. So it was on a basement, and you really felt it drinking Guinness and all. So that was more like a piece of the culture that I would like to have experienced more. But yeah, that was like the little taste there.
Yeah.
Mm.
Pint.
You've never went to pubs? Only imitations of pubs?
I went
Not
to sports
bars.
bars.
Who are you talking
Yeah.
to?
I go to sports
Of
bars.
course.
I go to watch games. That's what I
You go
do.
to watch games and throw darts.
I don't know. No, not really.
No,
I don't know. Like the ones here,
I've done that.
it's
No,
mostly
I
there's
suck
like
at
pool
it.
tables.
So-
There's pool
Okay.
tables. I never
All
do
right,
that.
right, fair
I
enough.
watch the games. I eat maybe like a fucking tosta.
Fucking touched that.
That's it.
That's
I
it.
don't
That's
drink,
good.
so
That's good.
I'm a bit out of place.
You know,
there.
yeah. That's good. Yeah. That's good enough. I've done bowling, laser tag.
Yeah, we have no
and
bowling down
darts.
here.
That's
Me and my
favorite
friends keep
games.
talking about like somebody should open a
Oh
bowling
yeah,
alley here.
where's the bowling?
There's no bowling.
Yeah. Sure. We have a bowling alley in Cologne, so we know that already.
Yeah, that's kind of amazing. Because Algarve it's a very touristy area. It's
I think there may be one. I think in like this is fucking in Albufeira. So there's lots of
Uh-huh.
British people there. I think there may be one there, but maybe I even then I don't think I'm not sure if it is, and it's also not very advertised. These things. There used to be one here in Faro, but it's gone. It's like it just
I loved when in malls they had those arcade games things, which I do not have anymore. Like when I was a kid, in Algarve inclusively, like in Guia, which is sort of a forum, like when you go to, you had so I remember as a kid, you had an arcade with the whole games and bowling. Now they're not advertised.
in Faro we have that.
All right.
We do have one.
Okay.
We have like a bar. Also have like a bar with PlayStations and Nintendos and things like that. That's fun.
Cool. It's stupid to say this, but it had that analog feel where it's not about computers or whatever, though it's still very digital, but you can touch things
Yeah, you
and
can touch the
work it
things.
out and etc. So
Yeah, we have like the
yeah,
ice
it's really
hockey.
fun.
Yeah, that's fun.
Oh yeah, ice hockey. Yes, that's true. Do you remember when cinemas had those, or do they still
Yeah,
have those? 'Cause I
the
don't think they have those anymore.
SBS, like in Portuguese, it was like SBS cinemas or something like that.
All right.
Like here in Faro, like they were huge, like hall. Like the cinemas itself were pretty small, but the hall to the cinema was huge.
Yes.
There was like these stands with candy as well that nobody bought because like kids would get there with their dirty hands, and it was just full of diseases.
Oh,
And there was like those tables, ice hockey tables. For some reason, I never really understood that.
I did play them in like
All right,
the
that's why
dead
they
time
were
of
there.
waiting for the film, or not so much in the intervals, more waiting for the film, or like when we went for the anniversary of some kid. And yeah, Forum, I've had that, because it was like a two-story cinema, which was amazing. And it was not Nosh owned then before that zone, and it was like the Palace, and the closest to a Palace cinema, now gone, now substituted for a Fnac, which is not that great. So it's like, now we have one cinema.
don't
which is
bash
like
on Fnacs. Fnacs are cool.
Depends,
like
depends,
Fnac. I like.
Fnacs in Lisbon are cool. Fnacs
They're
in here,
cooler in
like
Lisbon for
the
sure,
offer, the offer
They're
is
bigger,
not
Two
they're
very-
bigger.
stories.
They're bigger.
That's
Yes. So it's like if you're gonna make it, go all the way. Don't don't take away. It was two cinemas. Now it's like one that
Ou
is
vai ao
really out
racha
of hand.
with Fnac.
Vai
Push,
para
exactly. Now you have one which is in a mall, like really out of left field to get there. It's not in the center. And then it's like it's incredible. It's the capitalism working here, which you equiparate. It's not even a word in English. You equalize. I don't know. You make it look the same. Like the cinema now has become part of like the chain of restaurants. It's a cubicle next to other restaurants, and it's really small. Like in Faro, you enter there, no space for these other venues of entertainment or anything. It's not a place to be. The chairs, the lounge, you would be there, you'd sit, enjoy the windows. I don't know, like the view to the. But now it's just go there like a pig, go into the chain, come in, come out, and it's just the movies.
like a
which is okay,
casino.
fair enough,
Like
but-
why there's no
Casino.
natural light
Yeah,
in
no
the
natural
hall.
lights.
in the hall.
Exactly,
Obviously not in the
exactly.
cinema, but like
Because even the one that is in Glicinius, the other
Mhm.
mall that we have, it changed. It became this cubicle, which before it was this horizontal built thing, where you had space. You entered and you had the ticketing line, but also you had place enough for like ice hockey, big posters and everything. It's a place to be, not a place of passage, a place to be. And then you have those wings for the left wing and right wing for the rooms, for the screening rooms. But yeah, I think that charm of it has been lost to just, people come in, people come out, come in, come out. That's what it is. Yeah, loses the charm. Well, that's all for today. If you'd like to reach out and suggest a film for the next episode, you can find us on the podcast official Instagram and website pages. Feel free to subscribe, share this episode, or simply give us a like. That's how our podcast can grow ever more groovy. And if you're on YouTube and want to see more videos like this, check out this next video right here. Thanks for listening and see you next time.
Bye, love.
hello. Go on, bravo.
Bye, love.